Welcome to the podcast, where we teach you how to create marketing that pops. Get ready for refreshing conversations with industry experts, trendsetters, and creative minds that'll leave you bubbling with inspiration. Get ready to turn up the volume on your business. Let's get popping. Today we have our guest with us. Today we have Lynn Tickner from Key, a full-service branding and message agency that specializes in helping brands get their words right. She's a 7th-year StoryBrand certified guide, and she's passionate about assisting businesses to simplify their messages so customers listen, engage, and remember. So welcome to the podcast, Lynn.
Thanks, Olivia. Thanks, Michelle. It's great to be here.
Yes, we are excited.
Every episode, we start with a myth, and today is no different. So the myth that I have for you is a good name should explain exactly what you do. And what do you have to say to
A
that?
good name should explain exactly what you do, not necessarily. And usually, just a little background for listeners, one of the things that my agency specializes in is naming. I have an 18-person naming team. So we started doing naming in 2016. And so along the way, we have learned a lot. And one of the myths having to do with naming that people do come to us with is they want the name that they choose to do everything for them. So the way I like to explain it is you may want your name to be wearing too many hats. So it's best to choose one hat, one job for your name, which usually is something like create curiosity or cause someone to want to take the next step. Because the way I view a name is that it's the door that opens up everything else that your customer is going to learn about your brand. So the explanation, back to the myth of the name should explain everything you do. No, but your brand should definitely do that. And your messaging should definitely do that so that there is a description. But it's going to be really difficult to trademark a name that is very generic and very descriptive. And also, it's just if everyone is doing that, then there's no way for your brand to stand out.
Absolutely. I love how you tied both of those things in.
Yeah.
So, Lynn, tell us a little bit more about yourself. I know you kind of just gave us a little bit of a teaser, but we'd like to kind of know how you got your start. And if you want to, we'd love to hear the why behind Ink and Key.
Yeah. So, well, especially at this point in my life, I view everything through the lens of story. And especially as I look back in my life, I can see different things that happened kind of as part of my story, and we can all do that. So usually what happens in our lives, because I'll back up for a second. As a StoryBrand, a certified guide, now they're calling us coaches, same thing. I've learned a lot over the years about the elements of story and narrative and why our brains pay attention to that. And so in every good story, there's a hero and a guide. The hero is the one that at the beginning of the story is kind of a mess that has a problem to overcome. So in our lives, Olivia and Michele, you're the hero of your stories. You're walking through life, seeing everything through that lens. Listeners, whoever's listening to that podcast, you are listening to this podcast now as the hero of your story. And you may or may not be about to tune out because what you're listening for is, will this podcast help me solve the problem that I have? And that's what we have to do as business owners, is make sure that the message that we're providing to people is not going to cause them to tune out, because our brains are wired to survive and thrive. And if we don't get the answers that we need and we don't associate what we're getting involved in with the solution to the problem we have, we're going to go somewhere else because we're looking for a guide to help us solve our problem. Like, I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm looking for my Obi-Wan. I'm looking for my Yoda. And so in that context, I just give that little preamble or context just to give some more understanding to the readers of where I'm going with this. And I'll get back to your question. So in our stories, before we start something new, there usually has to be something that we refer to as an inciting incident, something that clicks in, and as entrepreneurs and listeners, I bet you can think of right now something that happened in your life that caused you to decide, okay, I'm going to start this thing. I'm going to build this business. I'm going to name my business. I'm going to get a logo. I'm going to create a brand. Why? There's something that happened that kind of caused you to sort of finally make that leap. If you are familiar with, there's lots of stories you can think about. Let's see, in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Lucy enters the wardrobe. That's kind of her inciting incident. Any story that you were familiar with, like go back to Star Wars, when Luke sees Princess Leia's video of her, help me, kind of thing, that was his inciting incident, right? And so all of us have an inciting incident that cause us to take the next step and do the big thing. So for me, my inciting incident was that I was in an unsuccessful marriage and homeschool mom and make ends meet. And so I was doing a lot of work freelancing, and I discovered naming projects and naming contests. And so I began joining these naming contests online. And if you've never heard of a naming contest, what it is a business owner would go to a certain platform, they would pay some money.
Yeah.
And you heard of those? Yeah. People from all over the world would join in and throw in name ideas. And if the business owner picked your name idea, you'd win money, right? And so doing that, because I was just doing everything I could online to, make ends meet and provide for my family. And I was like, I'm pretty good at these naming contests. Like I'd win $500. We've got groceries this week, people.
Yes.
But my inciting incident, that's kind of where it started, because I'm a problem solver at heart. And I started paying attention to how some of these platforms were running their businesses. And I noticed that as a creative person, I really cared about the business owner. And I was learning a lot, as much as I could, about branding and naming and trying to do a really great job. But I didn't have a way to communicate with the contest. So the platforms didn't provide for that a lot of times. And then I also am very, very high empathy. And so I thought about the business owner who is sifting through hundreds and hundreds and sometimes thousands of ideas and doesn't have a problem with the people joining these contests if they're trying to make extra money, because that's what I was trying to do. But a lot of times these aren't that invested. They're just trying to make money, so they don't know anything about branding and all of that. So all that to say, I thought, you know what? I could do this. I could solve this problem and create a platform where we are communicating and where it's a closed team, so it's more secure. You don't have random people all over the world. You have naming experts on a team who are there fully invested in the success of this business owner and helping them find the name that is the best fit for them. And that's kind of how I started my company. So that's sort of my inciting incident. And then starting my business was actually step one in changing my entire life.
That's a great beginning. I love that. So on your website, you mentioned like noisy brands. What does it mean to have a noisy brand, and how would you kind of go about fixing that?
Are you referring to like brands getting lost in the noise? Is that what you're? Yeah. There are brands that I would say are noisy, and probably the answer to that would be there's too many details. And they're not getting to the point, and they're not being clear, right? And so, because confusion is your number one enemy, listener. People who are listening, confusion is the number one enemy of your brand and you being able to serve the people you want to serve. And so the reason that really good businesses, the two of you have your own businesses, you are good people. There are people that you are specifically equipped and created to serve. There are problems that people have that only you can solve, right? And you that's why you're doing this, because you want to help people. And listeners, that's why you're doing what you're doing, because you want to help people, right? And the problem is that your listeners' brains are wired and created to survive and thrive. So within a few seconds, if they don't understand quickly what you do and how you make their life better, they're going to tune out. Their brains are going to be like, our brains are burning too many calories right now. We're tuning out because we're looking for someone who can help us. And if there's too much noise, too much confusion, then your brand will get lost in the noise, and your customers are not going to pay attention, and therefore you're not going to be able to serve the people that you are uniquely equipped to serve.
Perfect. Yes, I preach that all the time. It's like, what problem are we solving here? Let's get to that, because that's what people are searching for. And all the time, every time, never fails. It's like, okay, I have this problem. I'm Googling this or going to YouTube and trying to find a video to like help me figure out how to do something. and that's who's going
Yeah,
to show
that's
up.
right. And that's what, when people hear StoryBrand, talking about debunking myths, they'll say, "Oh, you're a StoryBrand guide. Can you help me tell my story?" That's what they think it's about. It's like telling your story. And I have to say, I'm sure you have a great story, but nope. I cannot help you tell your story, but I can help you invite your customers into a story in which they overcome a problem and get what they want. But even like, for instance, because we write a lot of website content, even on your about page, it's not really about you. It's, if you write a about page, it's about your customer and why you are uniquely equipped to serve them. So everything is nuanced, and like anytime it's focused towards you, you just quickly flip it back towards your customer. Everything is about them. That's how to create messaging that people will pay attention to.
I'm just finding this hilarious.
I know, because we just recently did our website, and that was what we were trying to do, and it was challenging because habit is that, oh, we do this, this, and this, and this, but it's like, well, wait a minute. Now, like, what is the problem that they're looking? How can we spin it? It's hard to do. It's not an
It
easy
is.
thing.
And it's especially hard if you're trying to write your own content. It really, really is. It's kind of like, have you heard of Solomon's paradox? It's King Solomon was known for his wisdom, but yet if you look at his life, there were things that he would advise against that he ended up doing, right? We all kind of have Solomon's paradox. I think when it comes to our own brands, I found it very hard to write my own content where I could, solve other people's problems all day, write other people's content all day, but writing my own, you need that objective perspective.
Yes, I run into that all the time. I can tell any other company, oh, you got to do this, this, and this. But then when it comes to mine, it's like, should we do that? I don't know. I'm sure I drive everybody nuts about it. But yeah, it's a lot harder because you're more critical of yourself.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. And we overthink our own stuff too, which is why it's so good to have a community and colleagues, people that we can turn to and say, "Will you read this?" Just in our StoryBrand guide community, which is very tight, just full of absolute experts in anything and everything you can imagine. We're always asking each other to help with all the things, because if it's your own stuff, it's just tricky until you get that outside perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
So I love how you talked about basically your start and how you started doing all those kind of naming competitions. What has been one of your favorite things that you yourself have been able to name?
Oh, that's a great question. There's a bunch. We worked with a couple of really large companies that I was young enough in the business that I didn't have the right things in my NDA. And so I'm not able to. One of them I can name drop. I can name drop Hershey's. The other one I cannot name drop because I'm not allowed to. But I was like, we were super starstruck to work with some large companies to help them name some products. And yeah, it was really fun. I'll come back to that because there's a specific name that had kind of a double meaning that I'm thinking of, and it'll pop into my head.
Yeah, we'll come back to it.
Yeah, we'll come back to it.
No worries. I think, coming up with names that's like the fun stuff. I love doing that. And then second, obviously, comes the strategy. Where do you feel like people kind of mess up, or like what are the biggest mistakes that you see people start to make when it comes to starting in that process?
Yeah. I mean, well, one of the things we've already discussed is, wanting your name to wear too many hats. There's one that has to do with trademark registration. A lot of people think that, well, if I can name, that means I trademark or that I can legally use this name. And that is absolutely not correct, only because I am on the other end. I work with a couple of awesome trademark attorneys, and they send people to me who have invested a lot of time and a lot of money into their brand without registering their trade, without doing the proper checks from someone who does own that brand or a brand that is similar. And then they have to change everything and they have to rebrand. And it's very emotional, very upsetting, very expensive. And so those are a lot of people that I work with. We do specialize in rebranding, but I have to walk them through that heartache of just letting go of what they thought belonged to them. And that's why I always advise caution and take your time, because a lot of people rush. Let's just name this thing so we can build our website and do all the things. And it's like, okay, however, cautious and do things in their proper order now, it's going to save you a lot of time and money in the long run, for sure. It's just naming, too, can be really tricky when you have multiple decision makers. It's really important to come up with objective criteria. A lot of people also, this is a big naming myth, is that the love at first sight myth, where people expect that when they see the right name, they're just going to know it. So they'll provide like, oh, I'm just not feeling it. And it's like, well, but that's not helpful. And the thing is, choosing a name is an objective marketing decision. It is not on a date, and it's not waiting for the little butterflies and cupids to show up, because otherwise you're going to miss a really great name. That's another reason to have good criteria, and set that criteria before you start your naming process, whatever that's going to be, and decide if this name meets A, B, and C criteria. Then if it can check these boxes for us, then we will consider it. And it's also just really, really important to have at least 3, if not more, names that are excellent candidates that have checked all the boxes before you start heading towards preliminary trademark screening and beginning to check out all these other things. Because if you have one favorite, then you're going to end up disappointed. It's best to have several good candidates, and that way you're not going to end up on the emotional roller coaster of, oh, we have to start all over again.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks for listening with us today. Stay tuned for the latest in web marketing and design from ThrivePop. Want to be a pop star? Head over to thrivepop.com/podcast to join our mailing list for episode notifications, sneak peeks, listener feedback, and more.